And if you stick around long enough, yeah, you'll hate the person, but there's also a reflection of self-hatred in there. What do you mean things aren't perfect? Well, look at all the war. Look at all the fighting. Look at all the, who does that? It's not us. It's not, if there's a God or not, it's not him. It's all of us that we do that. And that's what it is. It's a reflection of self-hatred. We just saw this yesterday, didn't we? Dude shows up at a church, at a school and kills 2 kids at a Catholic school. And you go, why? Well, the dude hated himself. You can watch his videos, see how he talks. That dude hated himself. He did everything he could to try to contort himself, to make himself into something that he didn't hate as much. Didn't happen though. He only made it to 23. And probably had a lot of people around him who were telling him he was perfect just the way that he was. And that's one of the worst things that you can do with someone like that, because they know they're not perfect. They know that they're not. They know that there's something wrong with them. And then when that hatred then gets turned inside of us, then, of course, we get what we got. And we get a lot of that. And that's the primary thing that happens. It's a person who comes along, looks at humanity, or even certain sections of humanity, and says, I have measured you, and I have determined that you are wanting. In other words, I've measured you, and I've determined you're not good enough. Humanity has to die. This person has to die. I get to be the judge of all of humanity. And that's because they didn't live up to the hope, so therefore we hate them. Left on red? What does that mean? I wouldn't know. Maybe you can explain it to me. Yeah. So here's a question. Why would a person be left on red? There's something else happening here, though. Like a really important thing is happening here. There's more to it. Because we're not just blinded by good stuff. If none of you know this yet, good for you. Yeah. I'm going to put fear in a bracket because fear is part of what leads to this thing. We always deceive ourselves how many times? Twice. The first time we deceive them is to their advantage. What's the second time? Their disadvantage. So the first time we deceive ourselves, man, they're perfect. So therefore, what's the second deception?
Oh, I do that.
What's that? Yeah. Explain. Yeah. Are they that bad though?
No.
No, that's the deception. You're a real piece of crap, that guy. Oh my God, he never loved me. The first time we deceive ourselves, they're perfect. Afterwards we deceive ourselves. Oh my God, he was so toxic. He was a narcissist. Facebook said so. Yeah. Well, not everybody. Because if you're aware of it, you can stop yourself from doing it. Because it's a cope. Yeah. There's a fear there where it's like, oh my gosh, I was wrong about this person, or this person, why would I have been wrong about them? Is it because I built them up to be perfect and even put a little purple heart next to them? No, it's more than that. No, it's not because I screwed up, it's because they deceived me, they lied to me. Oh my God, they're so terrible, they're so ugly, oh my God, the whole time, I bet he's probably cheating on me too. In other words, we deceive ourselves in the far negative as well. We make it out to be that the other person was a monster. Why didn't the relationship work out? Here's a funny thing. All of the relationships in your life that don't work out, they have one common denominator. You. And that isn't to say it's your fault. But, for example, I was talking to this person who's no longer a friend of mine. She was telling me that she had been in all of these abusive relationships, and she would describe it. They're physically abusive, they're psychologically abusive, mentally, every way you can imagine. And it was just abusive relationship after abusive relationship after abusive relationship. And I asked her, she asked me actually what I thought, and I asked her, why do you suppose you keep attracting abusive men? What is it about you that makes you look like the kind of person an abusive guy would be like, that's the one. She's like, what, are you saying it's my fault? I go, no, it's not fault. It isn't about fault, but it's a good question. If you keep getting fired from your job, it's a good question to ask yourself, why am I getting fired? What is it about me? Now, maybe it's your fault, maybe it's not. In the case of a job, it probably is. But in the case of a relationship, if you keep attracting the same kind of people, then, there's something about you that should tip you off. Yeah. That is all definitely part of that first deception. Oh, it's just because he's passionate. It's just because I was mouthing off. It's just because he's going through all this stuff. Those are all the lies that we tell in their favor, to their advantage.
Yeah.
Certainly. Yeah. Sorry, you asked me what the word is. I'd say the word is hate. I'd say the word is hate. Yeah. I don't know if any of you have ever felt that before, where you felt like you had to bring yourself to hate someone just to get them off your mind. You felt like you had to hate someone just to get over them. I've been told that. Yeah. Yeah, that's what a lot of it amounts to that. That's why these things are so complicated, so complex. It's because you stay in there to hate the other person, but what we're really hating is, why did I let myself get treated like that? Why did I not see these signs? Why did I? And there's like a self-blame that happens. And then you can blame the other person for what it is that they made you into. But again, if we go back though, was the person ever perfect? Of course not. Now we always say that, well, no one's perfect. Yeah, but nobody expects anybody to be perfect. The question is, how far away from perfect are they? Now, if the person is obviously abusive, well then, geez, there's obviously a big problem there. Now, if the other person is pretending to be perfect, I don't know. Is it that the other person pretended to be perfect, which happens? Or is it that we really hoped that person would be perfect? And then we got angry at them for not being what we thought they were. Like I was talking to a friend of mine a couple years ago, actually 2 or 3 years ago, he was telling me that he just hated God. He was so angry at God. I was like, why? He says, because God's supposed to be perfect. Well, look at all the evil there is in the world. He hated it. He hoped that if there was a perfect God, that there wouldn't be any pain, but there is. So his thing was either God doesn't exist, in which case he was hateful, or he does, and I hate him for not making things perfect. You have those two options. And if you stick around long enough, yeah, you'll hate the person, but there's also a reflection of self-hatred in there. What do you mean things aren't perfect? Well, look at all the war. Look at all the fighting. Look at all the, who does that? It's not us. It's not, if there's a God or not, it's not him. It's all of us that we do that. And that's what it is. It's a reflection of self-hatred. We just saw this yesterday, didn't we? Dude shows up at a church, at a school, and kills 2 kids at a Catholic school. And you go, why? Well, the dude hated himself. You can watch his videos, see how he talks. That dude hated himself. He did everything he could to try to contort himself, to make himself into something that he didn't hate as much. Didn't happen though, and he only made it to 23. And probably had a lot of people around him who were telling him he was perfect just the way that he was. And that's one of the worst things that you can do with someone like that, because they know they're not perfect. They know that they're not. They know that there's something wrong with them. And then when that hatred then gets turned inside of us, then, of course, we get what we got, and we get a lot of that. And that's the primary thing that happens. It's a person who comes along, looks at humanity, or even certain sections of humanity, and says, I have measured you, and I have determined that you are wanting. In other words, I've measured you, and I've determined you're not good enough. Humanity has to die. This person has to die. I get to be the judge of all of humanity. And that's because they didn't live up to the hope, so therefore we hate them. And it's both that's there, because part of the way that you can tell that you're hating yourself also is because you behave in a self-destructive way. Even if it isn't to the extreme of a hatred, at least it's a dislike or a lack of respect or a lack of love for ourselves. And so we have to be careful with that, because which of these two things is true? That the person is perfect or that the person is completely terrible? Neither of those is true. But we deceive ourselves with that, because following head over heels is easy for us if we deceive ourselves into thinking this person is better than they are. And then getting over them, hating them, makes it easier for us. In other words, both deceptions work. Once in their favor, once against them. But both of these deceptions, by the way, and this is an important thing, neither of these two deceptions works in our own favor, because we're deceiving ourselves about who other people are, and we're probably deceiving ourselves about who we are too. You know, in this class, all the classes I've talked to, all of them came with that same idea. First, you think they're great, but then you see the truth. Is it really the truth, though? Are they really that bad? Maybe. I've met some people. The person I was thinking of earlier, the one who's been in all those abusive relationships in a row. Yeah. There are very few people. How about this? Of all of the people I've met, this is the one person who I would look at and say, she is evil. She is. I have no doubt about that. I have no qualms with saying that. And I've known a lot of people, but I've seen her interact with people. I know who she is. You guys know what a narcissist is? Like an actual narcissist, not like a Facebook, I think my boyfriend's a narcissist, but like an actual real narcissist. And a narcissist they don't just like wear a mask, they are the mask. There is no self-reflection. So for example, if you're trying to, a narcissist is a person who, it isn't that they're just self-centered, it's that they think very lowly of themselves. And so they use other people to validate themselves. It isn't just that they, again, think I'm the greatest. They know they're not, and they hate themselves for it, and they hate the rest of humanity for it as well. So they will manipulate other people to get what they want out of them because it makes them feel better about themselves. And again, they will do whatever they need to do. They're not wearing a mask. They are the mask. There's no self-reflection there. So for example, if you're dealing with an actual narcissist, here's one way to sniff out a narcissist. Ask the following question. Tell me about a time in your life when you were wrong about something and you took steps to actually fix it. That question is damn near impossible for an actual narcissist to answer. They will answer the question by either deflecting it, in other words, not answering it, or they'll say something to the effect of, well, okay, one time I found out I was wrong. It's that I found out that people can't be trusted, and I was too trusting. And so now I've decided I'm not going to trust people as much. You see that? What was their problem? Their problem was that I was just too good. And everybody else was just more evil than I thought because I was being nice to them. A narcissist will have a very difficult time if answering a question like that. And so if you come across someone and you think that it might be the case, ask them that question. About a time in your life when you were wrong about something or you behaved badly in some way and you then took steps to try to fix it. Good luck getting the answer out of a narcissist. They may even get angry. When I ask that question to people who I suspect to be, they get really angry. They'll, why do you want to know that? Or they'll try and turn around on you. I don't know, what about you? Like, is there a time when you've done that? Or they'll come up with some like superficial way. I thought the price of beef was lower than it was or whatever. Something that has nothing to do with anything. And so this person is that person. I've asked this person multiple occasions about that. And when a narcissist thinks that you have sniffed them out, they will not associate with you. They will get as far away from you as possible. You can't ever change them. The only victory that you won't even get an apology from it. At least not a real one. The real victory in terms of sniffing out a narcissist is that you get them away from you. Because you sniff them out, they know that you have sniffed them out, and now they get away from you because you're dangerous. Because now you know who they really are. But here's what that also looks like. They're going to start talking shit behind your back. They're going to start accusing you of the exact same thing that they're doing. They're going to try to manipulate others, turn them against you, blah, 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 blah. And so it's different from what we typically think of as a person who's just self-centered. It's more diabolical than that. Probably can't say that. You guys know what a psychopath is? We typically call psychopathy antisocial personality disorder. We used to call it narcissism. So that's the general understanding of it. So yeah, be careful, man. We deceive ourselves about others. And if you find yourself in the deception, you know it's going to go in the farther other direction. Yeah, being unable to self-reflect. Yeah. And because having to self-reflect is scary, it's dangerous. Because then they see themselves for what they really are. And any level of like superficial self-reflection is going to be, okay, fine. Sorry. I'm trying to avoid the problems of our times, but they'll say things like, okay, yeah, I lied. I'm not gonna lie. I did that. They'll always kind of like, even if they're acknowledging, let's say, good example, they stole something. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I stole something. Well, why do you have to preface it with "I'm not going to lie"? Because you're congratulating yourself and you're building yourself up. Like, I'm not going to lie. I'm going to tell the truth. I'm going to be the bigger person here and tell the truth. That's a weird way to start off your sentence when you're about to explain something you did wrong by elevating yourself and saying, "I deserve credit for saying it." Yeah? And then when the person says, "I stole something," but here's why. And then there's an explanation for why. That guy had like 10 loaves of bread. I stole one of them. Or I only stole it because, there's always a justification afterwards. But you know what? That's on me. I stole it. You don't really believe that. You just gave away the plot. You gave us a whole bunch of explanations for why without acknowledging it from yourself. Questions, comments, concerns, complaints, criticisms, critiques? Yeah.